During this period with Amax, you became involved in the first of several discoveries, but there's one particular geological revelation regarding interpretation of the geology in Jalisco, Mexico. Can you tell us a bit about how that happened?
Yeah, for sure. In late 1981, I had some accumulated time, and I decided to try and visit deposit types that I hadn't seen before in the US and Mexico and Central America and Canada. So working with Amax, it was very easy to go to Climax and Henderson, which I did. I saw a lot of interesting deposits in that general region. And then I moved down to Mexico. I particularly wanted to see the Guanajuato area because I had no epithermal experience, and it was the type location for Larry Buchanan's classic model. So I spent a few days there, and then I went down to Fresnillo, the zinc silver mines at Zimapan and Zimapan, and then eventually down into Latin America, where Amax had a joint venture with Peñoles called Rosario Resources, and they were operating the El Machito mine, so I was able to visit that. I went across to the Dominican Republic to look at Publo Viejo, and once again a lot of these deposits were written up in an issue of economic geology. Then across to Cerro Colorando in Panama, and then back to the US, where I visited Amax's office in Tucson. The people there at the time were wonderful. Charlie Miller, who showed me or was able to arrange some of their porphyries, twin buttes, etc. But there was an old gentleman whom I met, Ken Lowther. Ken was probably at that time in his mid-70s.
Which year was this?
This is 1981, yeah, roughly. So Ken had spent most of his career in Mexico, and anyway, given I'd just been down there, he was curious to just chat to me, and I guess was feeling a bit homesick perhaps. So he mentioned to me that they had a problematic deposit called Cuale in Jalisco state, which was part of their joint venture, and he said to me, you know, it really concerns me. I don't think they understand the geology there. And I said, well, you know, do you have any information? And he showed me some maps, and it became pretty clear to me that this was possibly a Kuroko-type deposit based on my experience previously. And so they were mining it as a manto, both chimneys and mantos, and really didn't have what I felt was a good handle on the geology. So I mentioned it to him that I'd had some experience with Kurokos. I'd been to the type deposits in Japan, and he found that very interesting. He said to me, you know, if it's possible, would you be willing to go down there and work with the guys and have a look? I said, sure, that would be wonderful. So anyway, about 4 months later, I was back with Amax. I think it was in Indonesia, and I received a message that could I go to Mexico next week.
This is from Ken?
Yeah, via Jack and my superiors in Amax Australia. And of course Jack was all for it. He said, yes, if you can contribute or you can get some additional experience, by all means go. So I was excited about this. So a 3-month secondment was arranged for me to spend time at Cuale. It was in the hills behind Puerto Vallarta, but unfortunately I didn't spend much time in Puerto Vallarta. So I went up to the mine, and here are 600 Mexicans, one gringo, which was me. I had a great time over 3 months, and together with the mine geologists we basically remapped some of the surface, and it became very obvious that a number of the deposits, in particular Prieta, was a feeder zone for a VMS. Chivos de Abajo, Chivos de Arriba were sulfide mounds, and they even had a transported ore body, which was called Naica, and so which was actually their biggest deposit, and they were mining that with an open pit, but it was a transported zone from a sulfide mound. So the gentleman who was in charge of all of this was Enrique Gomez de la Rosa, a wonderful man, and he was fully supportive of what I was working in the team with. And at the end of the 3 months, he was extremely pleased with the outcome. And he organised, or he asked me if I would give a workshop or a seminar for VMS deposits of the Kuroko-type, and I said, well, I'll try. So he brought in all of his geologists from around the country, 15 I think if I remember rightly, and over 2 days we discussed Kuroko deposits. It took 2 days because 50% of the time was Enrique translating for me into Spanish. My Spanish was nowhere near good enough to even attempt something like that. But at the end of it, Enrique said to me, well, you've been extremely kind to us. We could arrange for you to visit our other mines if you have time. And I said, absolutely, I have time. So that took me up to their deposit at Naica, and I was able to spend 3 days there, accommodated by the chief geologist whom I'd met down in Cuale, and he took me down into the first discovered cave of swords. And of course, as a mineral collector, Naica is one of the classic deposits of the world for mineral specimens. So
I'm sure many people have seen that spread in National Geographic.
Oh, but the second one was even better.
Yeah.
But the first one was very impressive. They built a walkway through it. It was wonderful. And then I made my way back up through the Copper District, Los Pilares, La Caridad, Cananea, and back to Tucson. I sat down with Ken. We spent a full day going through everything. I gave him my report, my sections, and it was a win-win. So then I proceeded back to Indonesia.